Welcome to Spotlight. I'm your host, Amitha. Join us weekly to get inspired by guests who will share their success stories. Our guest today is an international female community leader in the form of a sociologist who is helping others find their unique voices. She has been awarded a doctorate in celebrity culture from the Department of Media Information at Curtin University in Australia. She's the founder of Center for Media and Celebrity Studies. Let us welcome to our show author, actor, and broadcast journalist, Dr. Samita Nandy. Hi, Samita. It's so great to have you with us today.
Hi, Amita. Thank you so much for having me.
And viewers get to know where you're actually dialing in from today. Let us know a bit about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, a lot of people get confused where I am because I do travel a lot. I'm in Lisbon right now, Lisbon, Portugal.
Wow, this is grandiose for us. We have an international guest on our show internationally today. So we are so interested to find out all that you do. But first of all, let's start off with telling us a little bit more about your growing up and your education.
So most people, when they see my CV, they might think, I'm Canadian with work experience in America, and I go around the world. The part that a lot of people may not know is that I grew up in India. I was born in Toronto, but at the age of 8, my parents moved to India, and I lived there for almost 13 years. And then I came back to Toronto and I continued with my bachelor's, my master's, my broadcast journalism in Toronto. So my education takes a huge part of my life, but I did grow up in India.
Amazing. So this is where your experience is at right now, global experience. Tell us a little bit more about what inspired to take you to take up the path that you are at right now.
I never really planned, I responded to calls that I always had. Education was a great part of my life. So it's something that I really wanted to pursue. I always loved doing research, and I never planned, but I ended up doing a PhD in Australia, and then I did a lot of postdoctoral research. And my goal was always to give a voice and address social issues. And I just kept going with that. And I'm really grateful for that journey and the way it just took me around. And here I am, I also did quite a bit of journalism. I was a journalist. I was a print journalist when I started my bachelor's at York University. Then I got certified as a broadcast journalist. But before I could take up a job in television, I was hired by the University of Toronto to teach media and communications. And I taught at Ryerson University in Toronto, and then because of a lot of life, I went to Australia and I continued teaching there, and I took up a PhD and did my postdoctoral research after that. So it's something that I'm still continuing. Research is a big part of my life.
I love it. I mean, most of us take some time for the term enlightenment, as I would say, but it sounds like you never pushed yourself towards, societal expectations that you needed to take up a certain career path, certain education. Like you said, you kind of went with what was speaking to you at the time, and it sounds like you always had that goal to help others, find themselves. And I just love that aspect of your journey that you just shared with us. And thank you for that, because a lot of us, especially in the South Asian culture, we are, bound by certain expectations, and we go with the expectations, not listening to our heart. I have to ask you, did you have any challenges when you were doing what you were doing?
Yes and no. My parents were very supportive. Um, you know, till the time I had them, they were extremely supportive, and they really encouraged me to consider artistic paths. So even when I did my education, I think there was an artistic approach towards it. My master's, my PhD, they all looked at media. So that's my specialization. It's media, and I particularly look at celebrity culture. And that's what most people know me as a PhD on fame, running the Center for Media and Celebrity Studies. Sorry, Center for Media and Celebrity, yes, Studies. But yeah, I always had an artistic approach, and I believe in practice-based research. So I'm always connected to the practices that I'm exploring, that I'm examining. So I've been doing dance off and on, and during the pandemic, I got trained as an actor. It's something that I was planning. It was just a matter of time. So I got trained as an actor and also as a screenwriter, and I've been writing a novel as well. So they all inform each other. I don't think they're separated. It's something that I've been studying and I examine, and it makes more sense to come with more experience. And I think, when I have informed opinions about the representation of actors or any performing artist, it's really coming from experience. And for me, there's a social justice issue as well. I'm a woman that comes from a culture that is quite traditional, and there's quite a bit of patriarchy in many cultures, but like my experience comes from the South Asian culture, and so sexism is something that I battle with. So on one hand, I received a lot of inspiration from my parents. They were very progressive, and they never even talked about being married and having kids. They were basically very much supportive of progressive arts and education and travel. What was very challenging is, on one hand, overcoming their loss, and on the other hand, experiencing harassment and dismissal continually. And that's something that was always very uncalled for. So it's something that I'm, quite used to right now. But patriarchy is something that, I don't really settle for. And so I challenge sexism at all level. And it's very sad. Most patriarchal figures, in my case, happens to be women. So that's something that really needs to change.
Oh, wow, that's very interesting. You caught me off guard. So mostly from women is where you've had the challenges. So we will talk about that more. And we thank you for, sharing your journey and the challenges you have had. And I'm very sure a lot of us do experience that, but, fear to talk about it because it's a topic of taboo. But then that escalates things. So we are grateful to have a community leader like you that shares that experience. Make sure then we understand that we are not alone in this kind of journey where women do face a lot of challenges these days. So we want to talk more about it and more about the multiple hats that you wear. But before that, it's time for a short break. Welcome back to Spotlight. We are talking to the inspirational Dr. Samita Nandy. So thank you, Samita, for sharing your journey with us. So now we know where you come from. But let's go back and focus on this celebrity culture, which is where your focus is. It's a very interesting area. Tell us a little bit more about, what that experience is like. What are the projects that you're involved with, and how do you relate with the community on this topic?
It's a huge and fascinating topic. I could go on and on, so I'll just make sure, like I stay precise. Something that I tell all my readers, my listeners, my viewers is that whether we are celebrities or not, whether we are fans or not, most of us especially if we're living in big cities. We are part of celebrity culture. And there are dominant representations of fame, when it comes to, certain looks. There's quite a bit of dominance. There are a lot of social issues to be aware of. My PhD looked at the construction of fame in a national context of Canada. And when I did my postdoctoral research, then I basically looked at the transnational level of celebrity activism for human rights, animal rights, and environmental issues. So it's just fascinating how that lens of inquiry, the lens of inquiry of celebrity culture, really translated to considering social good. And what I would tell everybody, including myself, is not to transfer our ethical responsibilities to celebrities all the time. It's important what they're doing, they're giving a voice, but their cause will not be fulfilled if we do not support the cause equally. So I'm a huge advocate for role models in everyday life, and to be aware of, the kind of media activism we have around celebrities. I mean, we can't really neglect that, but at the same time, we would like to learn from that and use media for a social good and support social causes.
Very well said. Yeah, it's so true that we sometimes put celebrities on a pedestal and then we forget that they are humans too. And we need to share some of that social responsibility when it comes to topics that they advocate for, or even understand if they have done something that is not ethically correct. We cannot just sit on it because they are humans too. So this is very interesting. Where can our viewers find your work?
Well, I wrote three books. So my first book is about fame. It's called Fame in Hollywood North. So it has like A to Z on fame. And then there's a book on fashion. It's called Ethical Glamour and Fashion. And they're all available online. Whether it's Barnes and Noble, whether it's Amazon, or if people want to take a quick sneak peek in Google Books, they can. And my third book is about media. It's called Becoming Media Critics, and it basically has all the skills that I've acquired as a media spokesperson. And I didn't want to keep that to myself. I learned the hard way. I never had a publicist, but I have been on the Telegraph, Vice, Flair, Chatelaine, Global Mail, and Global News recently, a wide range of media, also in LA, and Yahoo Entertainment. And I wanted the experience to translate to other people and how they could also use the media to give a voice. So all that information is available in my books. And of course, I use social media. So one of the best ways to learn is just log into social media and have a conversation.
Nice. So now we know where to find your work and how we can also get involved with bringing about changes. Let's delve now into the Center for Media and Celebrity Studies. You are the founder. Tell us a little bit more about the work behind this organization.
So it's an international research network that facilitates academic research and media commentaries on fame. We have over 3,700 members right now. It's very active on Twitter, and social media has really made it accessible and available to a wide range of public. We had many conferences, seminars, workshops around the world. We started in Toronto, and then we had conferences in New York, in LA, in Lisbon, Barcelona, in Perth. And right now, we are on a long-term break because of the pandemic, but all the information is available in terms of the publications that we had. So, if people wanted to learn about, the media, about celebrity culture, about fashion, persona branding, it's all available in the books that have been published after the conferences. And in the meantime, just, again, jump into conversations, and we're very active on social media, especially on Twitter.
Wow, Dr. Samita Nandy, the multiple hats that you wear. And like we already mentioned, a very interesting topic, and really looking into human behavior and how we can relate it to ourselves and bring about changes in the community. So we have heard about the author, Dr. Samita Nandy. We have heard, bits about the actor, Samita Nandy. Can you tell us a little bit more? That has actually shaped up over this pandemic. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, it's something that I really never planned. I mean, the pandemic for sure, I never really planned. But
None of
yeah,
us did, I
time
guess.
has been flying. I wish I had more time. um, yeah, that's quite interesting. I mean, I have done performing arts before, but I never considered that to be a part of my career. So this is my third career, acting. My first career was teaching. My second career was research, and my third career involves acting. And I don't think it's that far from what I've done in the past. With the help of my journalism background, what I really realize is it's telling human stories. That's really what it is. I pursued acting not to impress, but to express. For me, it was very important to get trained in acting, and of course, you have shared experiences in acting as well. It really taps into other parts of our body, and telling our stories, and of course, giving life to so many characters. I don't think that the social roles that we often play tell our story. It doesn't. But I think, we are so much more when we relate to other characters, when we empathize with them, and the stories that are written for these characters, they come from such an authentic place. So it has been an excellent journey. I would really encourage everybody to consider, what it takes to act, instead of, just shifting towards celebrities, because that's really a media representation. That's a journalistic approach to representing just a very limited number of actors. Mostly we come across A-list stars, and what it takes to be a hardworking actor is not fairly represented. So this has been a fascinating journey, and it's a lifelong journey. So there's a long way to go.
Amazing. I love it, Samita. I mean, you don't even spare a moment, I think, in your life to do anything to just relax. Every moment of your life is spent in, making yourself better and doing something to make the community better. We want to find out more, but before that, it's time for a short break. Welcome back to Spotlight. We are talking to the founder of Center for Media and Celebrity Studies, Dr. Samita Nandy. So, Samita, wow, wow, wow. Talking to you today, so inspired and enlightened as well on a topic that I didn't have much knowledge about. So, like I was mentioning, you wear multiple hats. You yourself have had, many careers. What do you see yourself in the future in terms of your long-term vision?
I think my long-term vision is to tell, my story more and more. I have a feminist story. I have talked about my family members, my colleagues, how they have played a role and how they haven't really played a role. And so my goal is to address the sexism that I have received in a personal sphere. I have published quite a bit on, my colleagues and family members, and it's all available. So I'm not going to repeat right now, but I think to tell that story would be a matter of social justice, and it would be a matter of giving a voice to my parents as well. And I think it's not really a story that's limited to me. I think many women experience challenges in their personal life. Patriarchy starts at home. So I think that's where we really need to be honest with ourselves and create a safe space where everybody could actually be who they are and also accept others for who they are. So I think telling this story will help others to relate, and it has helped. I have received quite a bit of responses, but it's still very limited. Like it's quite private. Some of the responses I've received, it was quite. It was heartbreaking. Some of the stories that I've heard in response to, what I have said. So I would like more and more women as well as men to express themselves in a way that they should.
Amazing. This is so great to hear, Samita, because as you are, studying celebrity culture, you sometimes would think a person in your position would also, adapt that kind of a lifestyle or adapt that kind of grandiosity. But yet you're so humble, down to earth. You are looking to connect more with the community and bring about that change. How do you stay so grounded, amidst being in that kind of entertainment and celebrity culture?
I'm a very minimalist person myself. I think, I learned a lot from my parents and my grandparents. My grandfather was a freedom fighter in British India, and he was always very strong with his integrity and his sense of ethics. And I'm just used to, you know, fighting, I guess, and advocating for ethics. For me, that's the most important thing. And I'm very privileged to be able to do my arts for an ethical cause full time, and I worked for that. And I have a couple of more articles coming up, interviews coming up that talk about, the way I arranged myself, how I designed my life, how I, made this financially possible. So, I don't want to come across as, I don't know, very egocentric and entitled about this, but I do want to stress that finance is very important, and we have to create a very safe and prosperous space for us to do what we need to do. And I'm in a very privileged position to do this full time, pretty much all the time.
That's such a great insight on into the way you think, and not many of us tend to do that, and we get caught up in that materialism. But these are very practical tips that you have given us. Now, I have to wonder: do you have some time for yourself, or spare time where you're not doing what you're doing full time?
I think most of my time is spare time because, for me, life reflects art. I hope that makes sense. The art I do is just a reflection of my life, and that's how art should be at the craft level. So, from the moment I get up, I do raw food, I do high impact cardio. It's just part of my life. So I'm always prepared to, go into performing arts, dramatic arts, literary arts. So that's more of my, I don't know, it's more of my pleasure to be able to do that. And I do have a lot of spare time, but I never really feel like it's, I don't know, it's spare time. It's like it's always engaged. And as I said, like all my platforms are available, they're there for conversation. All the information that I have, I made it public. I always wanted to make the knowledge of fame and what it takes to be a role model available and accessible to the public. So that's where all my time goes, and I'm very happy to be able to engage and connect with everybody at that level. So it's just a pleasure, I would say.
That's amazing, Samita. I would say I think we all strive to be at that place where work is not work, when you love it and when you're really doing it out of sincerity, not just because you have to. So, so grateful that you could share your journey with us today, Samita. It's been quite an inspirational journey that you've shared with us, and I'm sure our viewers have been inspired too. Uh, do you have any final words of advice for our viewers?
I would say two things just so far that I've learned, and I hope this benefits a lot because I learned the hard way. Minimalism really helped, like in terms of realizing the dreams that my parents and I had, that the larger community had. It was only possible because of minimalism. And I realized that a lot of material that, I felt very bonded to, especially, like material that belonged to my parents, um, I had to let go, 39 years of the life that I had with them, and every possession that came along with that, I had to let go. And that was one of the hardest things. But being attached to that material was actually getting in the way to give a voice worldwide, and I really needed to make myself available to certain places that would make that possible. And I would really encourage people to consider that a more sustainable living, and it's very challenging. And the last thing that I would say is, you know, every person is unique. I really believe every person is unique, and to be the world's first. If you're the world's first, quite likely you're the world's best, and you're at least the world's best in your immediate environment, and that's such a reward. It's such an achievement. So I would like to see more and more of that. And because my center is committed to recognize role models, I would like to see more role models and see more stars shining. And thank you to you to have a program like this spotlight, recognizing so many community members. You are a role model yourself, and it's such a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you. Always a pleasure, Samita. And thank you so much once again for joining us today. And we wish you all the best and look forward to more work from you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that was Dr. Samita Nandy, who has inspired us today to take an interest in human behavior and make the best of what we have. Well, that's a wrap for this week's show. Thank you for watching us. Continue to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and write to us at spotlight@ethnicchannels.com. Until next week, this is Amita signing off, encouraging you to carve out your own spotlight.